Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Chess Show on Pod TV. My name is Sash Star, and we have full house here. First of all, Professor Ken Regan. Welcome to the show, Ken.
Yes, thank you very much for having me on. I'm in my office.
Okay, good. And also we have Professor Dan Fleetwood. Welcome to the show, Daniel.
Hi, happy to be here.
Great to have you. And finally, Jim Eat from Eat Foundation. Welcome to the show, Jim.
Thank you for having me, Sasha. Great to be here.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so we have a few items today. All these fantastic tournaments are being played on the very, very top level. And but first of all, before we go into the game, let's start with this idea of Judith Polgar to eliminate women's titles. Ken, maybe you can enlighten us how it works and what is
Well,
it?
the first thing to point out is that the system of women having separate titles with lower qualifications goes all the way back to the 1950s. So it was, and I think it was established at a time of reasonable need for something like that. So I'm not going to offer an opinion on the reasonableness of doing so by itself, but I am going to say that if you're going to do it, now is the optimum time. The stories do happen weekly of women achieving new norms, women playing in mixed tournaments with men. Chess's popularity coming out of the pandemic with the Queen's Gambit and local promotions having greatly stimulated women's chess. So if you're going to do something like that, I'd say now is the best time. But I'll reserve an opinion on the overall wisdom.
Jim, what's your take on this?
Well, I think, I was going to say it might be a little bit too soon, but, what about the compromise solution of allowing women who have earned the women's titles to retain them, but not grant any further ones?
Because that's what I take it as Judith Polgar is phasing out, not eliminating.
Phasing out, not eliminating. Okay, yeah. Thank you for the update, because that's something I can get behind. I wouldn't want to punish anyone. I wouldn't want to take anyone's title away from them. That would rub me the wrong way, and I think it would be a real problem. But if you're just saying let's abolish them going forward, I can get behind that.
Yeah, I think Judith's word "delete" was understood that way. But I think she really just means, not confer them anymore.
Okay, then in that case, I'm behind it, because women are capable of earning the same titles as men. I think they're demonstrating that now.
How many women are in a top 100 players?
Yeah, that's a good point, Sacha.
How many?
But, we're talking
one, right? How many women would be in
Count How You Fan, yeah.
Okay, 200, top 200. How many women are there?
Well, there's still a lot of catching up to do, as you're pointing out. But you can't tell me that women can't achieve international master titles.
Yeah, I think it's the real focus here.
It's not the issue of titles only. It's an issue that, thanks to the women's tournaments, Olympiad, and some kind of infrastructure being built, some women, believe it or not, can make a living from chess. Now, if all this infrastructure will be eliminated, there are maybe less than 5 female chess players would be able to earn any living out of chess. And even 5, it's, I think, overstretched. If there will be no women tournament and they will be only playing in a normal, should I say, men's, women's, mixed tournaments or men-only tournaments, you can call them any way you want, they will be guaranteed to be in the lower half of the table, if not outright the last 2, 3, 4 places.
Is that part of Polgar's proposal to eliminate women's teams in the Olympics? Excuse me.
Well, obviously, if they don't have titles, or in the near future, let's see, there will be no new titles awarded. So there will be these titles will slowly expire, and there will be essentially where there will be handful of women's grandmasters. For example, even today, if you take a look, how many women fulfilled the norm of a man's grandmaster? I'll be surprised if there will be more than 5. And even 5, I'm not sure that there are. So there will be absolutely obvious disappearance of women grandmasters, again, except, say, 4 or 5 very strong players. And so the all infrastructure for women's chess, especially if there will be no more women's only tournament, women's cup,
Does
the
that follow?
Olympiads, that will be the end of women's chess as we know it.
I don't think that follows, Sasha. The Carnes Cup in St. Louis and the Women's World Championship in the United States, there would be no reason to discontinue them.
Yeah.
I don't understand the connection. Just because you're taking away future titles, it doesn't mean that the structure itself would collapse.
Okay.
Maybe eventually that's a good thing, but certainly not in the near future.
Yeah.
But I don't understand then why one of the very serious, I would say, incentives for women to play in women's only tournaments, women's Olympiads, etc., is fulfillment of the Grandmaster's title. Of course, women's Grandmaster, because men's Grandmaster title for most females is practically unachievable, at least at this time. 50 years from now, or
There are a bunch, I think.
Yeah, the Carnes Cup, the incentive is money.
100 years from now, it's a different story. But today, let's
So
face
there's
it,
a market for women's
player
chess.
in a top 100.
I mean, there's
I just
clearly a
think
market.
So why not?
So I'm not seeing why there would be an incentive to reduce the number of events. I think the incentive would be to increase them.
Actually, exactly, and this is what I'm trying to say. You can increase the number of these events, and rightly so. But why take one of the serious incentives for females playing chess, playing in tournaments, practice, take coaches, and so on, when the Grandmaster's title is no longer available to them?
Yeah.
At least
Well,
women Grandmaster.
at the Cairns Cup, the only established female player without the men's GM title is Anna Zatonsky. So you had everybody else, grandmasters, and then I am Alice Lee. Is young, hasn't played enough for the to earn the GM norms. So
Yeah,
I don't know
I
how
think-
many.
I'm still thinking that the structure for women's chess would continue. I don't see it collapsing anytime soon. And I think the idea of saying that women's incentive to play in the Olympiad, I mean, I would have done almost anything to represent the United States on the Olympic team. It just wasn't good enough. So, my incentive was certainly there, but I had to have a career. So it got in the way.
Yeah. You can earn the regular FM IM titles fairly readily. So
I mean, a guy like I did.
yeah.
Ken was much better than I was. He got an IM title. But,
Right.
I got the
Not a
IM title
GM, no.
in part-time, and so I'm absolutely certain plenty of women can get the FM and IM titles.
So the essence of the Judith's proposal is, okay, so you retain all women's tournaments and women's Olympic teams, and everything is there. Just one tiny thing. There is no longer women's Grandmaster title. What's the purpose of that? Why would you do that if you keep the female chess infrastructure and you have tournaments and the Women's World Cup and Olympiads and everything? And so a lot of women, they're still playing against each other much more often than they're playing against men. Because obviously that now
True.
men are still strong, way stronger players.
Although there are more men in
benefits
opens, but you're right. Yes.
Well, it's a systematic incentive to say that women are not as good as men by giving them special titles. And so if you institutionalize that, I think this is Polgar's point. If you institutionalize that, you're saying from the jump, women aren't as good as men. And so that's the disincentive for women to get involved in chess. And so she wants to do away with that, and to have women incented to get just the same titles, so that we no longer have necessarily in the future, maybe years in the future, a men's and women's Olympic. We just have an Olympiad
Yeah.
with
Jim,
plenty of women playing.
Jim, if you are right, then why not to abolish all women-only tournaments and Olympiad, women Olympiad, and everything?
But we're not ready for that.
Well,
I mean,
no, we're not ready for that. And what I'm showing is, the Cairns Cup. Alice Lee and Anna Zatonsky both do have the WGM title, but they were billed with the regular titles in this tournament.
which is, I think, Polgar's point. That's what we want.
Right. So,
Well, in any case, I think four old guys talking about what's best for women
Yes.
in chess is perhaps not the most, let's say,
Representative.
appropriate venue. I think what the women believe is best for the women is probably what we should listen to most carefully.
yes.
Thank you, Dan.
And I wish that we as a society would do that more often.
But there are
That's
statistics.
almost a political statement.
But you can't ignore statistics. Statistics, as we started, is one
Statistics evolve.
female.
Yeah. What was it like in the
Statistics
50s?
evolve.
But you can't fight it. It's one female player in a top 100. And at what level she is? What, 75, 89? It's not very far from the end of top.
Well,
Polgar was up there.
people were talking about women in science and engineering, blah blah
It's a
blah
different
blah
story.
blah blah
It's a
blah blah
different
blah.
story.
And
It's
in
a-
about one generation, all those differences went away. Poof.
Yeah.
So when things change, they can change really, really quickly.
And we had Title IX in the United States where women were allowed to participate in sports and the universities had to support them. And now women's sports are just booming. I mean, the U.S. women's soccer team is something that I follow. I mean, this is just, one of the things that we have to do is get away from the old stigmas. And I think that's the basis of Polgar's
But
performance.
Jim,
And they will get better, Sasha. This is the thing. They're
female-
better than they were in the 50s. They're better than they were in the 70s. They're better than they were in the 90s. That will continue.
Eventually, they will be playing much stronger than men. In
Well,
some-
no, I think they're
No,
playing.
they will. Why not? I just don't see. Now, tell me, Jim, have anybody thought about putting female basketball team against men's basketball team?
Yeah, or tennis. That's perfectly fine. But of course, that's in more physical pursuits. I was going to point out, pursuant to what James said, that well over half of our 40 Olympic gold medals were contributed by women in the last Olympics.
But the women compete against women. That's an issue. They can win 155 medals competing against women. Nobody will come with the idea that they have to compete against men because men are stronger. They have much more capacity. That concern chess. Even in chess, you need a lot of physical abilities. You have to have stamina to sit at the board for 5 hours, and it's
Women have
very
stamina,
much
believe me.
easier
Yeah, I do,
for female. Even just to sit quietly for 5 hours without speaking a word, it's for
All right.
females much
Yeah,
I
harder.
think we should move on to another
No,
subject.
I we should move on to the other topic.
Not with
And-
you there.
But I am just going to point out that I and a colleague of mine here in Buffalo are involved in the research that I'm showing on this tab. So this is where I believe the root of what we're talking about is. And it's possible that my talk in St. Louis next month will be able to touch on this a little bit
Good for you, Ken.
from what I have in my statistics.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean that was historically the problem with
Yeah.
with women being considered inferior in math, science, and engineering. Once
Absolutely.
they were given the opportunities, the encouragement, and the mentorship,
Yeah.
they perform as well or better than men.
And I shout out to Peggy Orenstein, who wrote the book Schoolgirls, and she made that fundamental point how the bias early on shifts people away from math, women away from math and sciences, and changing that bias is the root of what Polgar is going after. That bias, and it's early on that they're trained to go in other directions. And point them in the direction of chess and see how good they get. I mean, that's the idea. And it'll take years to well, maybe it's just a generation, as Dan suggests. But in any case, I was surprised, and I looked at the top 100 list, and Nakamura and Caruana are 2-3. You know, so maybe I haven't been checking it regularly, but that's pretty.
Yeah, as it turns out, they're pretty good.
They're
It's a
pretty good.
historical shock to me to see on the Olympiad lists that the U.S. is far and away the highest rated team, and then
Yeah.
India. You know, well, you know, no Russia is part of it, but still, yeah.
Right. But yeah, it's interesting to me that we're going to have a world championship between two of the players that aren't on the top of the list, and you know, so well, they're high on the list. No, don't get me wrong, but they're not the best players. Seems to me.
See, it's a problem with the qualifying systems that it takes players about at least a year to play in this World Cup and candidates and several other tournaments and so on. And it's very difficult for somebody to keep the top form throughout the year.
Yeah.
There are some tournaments that you may do very well, like Gukesh. He was brilliant in this candidate tournament. But if there will be another candidate tournament, see, a month later, 3 months later, I'm not sure that he would take first place. It's very subjective. And I like the system when there was a tournament, I think it was in San Luis in Argentina, when top 8 players, including a world champion, played in one tournament, and the winner of the tournament would become a world champion. Although traditionally for chess, you have to beat world champion one-on-one.
Yeah, that was the Masters tournament argument. Yeah.
Difficult
Yes.
to have an
Or
upgrade.
versus Steinitz.
Well, Judith herself played in one of those. So yes.
Okay, again, would you like to show us a couple of games?
Yeah, I have a few games. So I'm actually going to show the most interesting game of the ones I found first, which is by the young American player Brewington Hardaway, who made his final GM norm in the Sands Open, but he still has to get his rating above 2,500 to earn the title.
The hard part.
And this is an interesting game because it's a game just about the which tab is it now? Here it is. It's a game with some interesting points just about how to think at chess. You know what the kind of fine point that superior skill at chess involves. Even a point in the middle game that Hardaway himself missed. Okay, so this was his win in round 6 before he closed with draws to.
I'm not seeing it yet.
Earn the norm. Okay, yeah. So it's.
Oh, there we go.
Okay,
There we
yeah,
go.
it takes a little while. Yeah. So this was the highest rated player he beat, Paulinas Poltavicius, I think of Lithuania, and so Hardaway is black. And we playing the 4-Knight Sicilian reversed, so we already know it's going to be an interesting game. Although,
So that's an interesting variation. I mean, that's
Yeah.
already double edged.
It's already it's walking into a classic Capablanca fork. Seems to be. Yeah.
yep, indeed. So the question is this bad for black? Usually, these kind of things are better for white. You know, that's why you want to stay away from this kind of fork. But it's a little bit more unclear here because white's pawns are going to be disrupted. Black has a coordinated way of responding, and so now white's pawn structure has been mashed, and white's not a pawn ahead here either. So it's an interesting thing, and now white goes about playing solidly, so getting the king to safety behind a wall of pawns. That's not what happens.
Whoa!
Castles this way.
You totally had me going.
Yeah. And so now this is really double-edged. White has a huge lead in development and chances of pressing with a central attack.
I'm sorry. White's position is something that only a computer would love.
Well, yeah, the computer does give it plus 0.28, but yeah, so this is
Great comment, Dan.
yep.
Would you
So-
play into this in correspondence?
Oh my God, no.
but both players have not been using any time. They both accumulated the full 4 minutes plus of increment while blitzing these moves. So this must
Interesting
be
move.
Yeah, known moves. White did take about 5 minutes to play Queen E3. So black is just fingering opportunities for counterplay on.
I
position.
mean, unless White's a computer, he's going to lose this position.
Yeah. Well, white plays a move that the computer likes. It's in fact the only move, if you're looking at the right-hand side of the screen, that prevents black from getting a pawn advantage. This is to support the ruined structure with your king and put yourself right in the way of black's B pawn, which now does a pile drive down the board.
Of course.
I want to open the file.
Yeah.
No, I'm closing the file.
Oh.
I want to open the file. No, I'm closing the file. I want to
Did he
open
play
the
Bishop
file.
E6 first?
No,
A3,
I'm
yeah.
closing the file.
Of course.
Yeah.
This is
the
hilarious.
first time I've ever seen a triple,
This is wonderful.
a threefold version of this. Yes. So now, so now black plays Queen E6, which is a nice solid move. Maybe the queen could shift somewhere else. Okay, so now white plays a nice solid move of his own, Rook D4.
Yeah.
And
King side totally undeveloped, or almost totally undeveloped.
yeah. So now, so there's a great, so Bishop B7, a nice developing move again. And so now there's a great adage: when you're being attacked on the wing, respond in the center. Well, actually, black did the attacking on the queen's wing. So now black responds in the center. And this is what brings the game to a head. So actually, black is caught up in development, has a nice active position. The computer still says dead equal, but I really would not want to be playing white here.
Wow. Yeah.
So anyway, Queen G3. So now black plays this rook. So we're definitely, and the reason for playing this rook is that this rook pressures the F2 square. Okay, which after F takes E5.
Great comment. Not immediately obvious. Yes.
Yeah. I guess, and at some point, inviting white to just go ahead and play king takes B3 anytime he wants to.
Right. So then you could switch back to activity
Exactly.
on the B pawn. So now black plays again a solid move like this. The computer doesn't like this move.
No.
The computer would have liked black to resolve the center right away. And in fact, the you can just take this pawn. White what's this? All sorts of things white can do here. What is it? Rook takes D7. Oh yeah, because if bishop takes H7 check. I think this would be the reason why you would shy away from that.
Yep, exactly.
Computer says it's fine for black after black plays G6, but I wouldn't want to do that. So rook to F7, what it was really doing as a logical move, the logic of the move was you're guarding your D pawn.
Right.
Okay.
Very human move.
The rook. Now, the computer says that white could have, defused the position somewhat by playing bishop E4 and trading a pair of bishops. But white instead played, really interesting move
Wow.
to try to establish superiority in the center. Now, as you see from the chess.com annotation, it's a mistake. And it's interesting to see what did white underestimate here. So
I guess he was just expecting black to take on D5 and probably spent most of the time on that.
I agree.
Yeah, well, you can't take it because bishop takes H7 check is going to discover attack on the queen.
Right.
Otherwise, you're just letting white have 3 points abreast of
Right.
the queen is almost trapped.
Exactly.
So the weird thing is that black captures on E5, which is like what your rook on D5 was protecting, and then white abjectly realized
I
that he
can't
couldn't
take
get
it.
back. So I think what happened was that white obviously expected to play rook E5 and then just underestimated the strength of this move.
Right.
Sure.
And if white's king goes back, then when black captures, you have queen takes F2. And that brings about the point about about that.
Oh my goodness, yes.
So this
Still
clearly
interesting,
is what white mistook. And the other thing I've forgotten to pay attention to this. Now the clocks are down to under 30 minutes, both players. And
Wow.
this game did not have a lump sum. The tournament, I think, did not have a lump sum at turn 40. So it was just 5,400 plus 30 second increment tournament. So anyway, white played bishop e3, c3, black played e4. This is good. And now, now black captures on d5.
Mhm.
So now you're up the exchange. And now this again is one of the really fine points about chess. So the computer claims that black gave away most of his advantage by playing queen f5 right away.
Huh.
Instead, it wanted to play queen f6 check.
That's what I would have played.
Yeah,
Not-
okay. So why would you have played queen f6 check? What's your idea?
Oh, I guess I don't have a response to bishop d4, huh?
Well, that's right. So after bishop d4, now what do you play?
Yeah, right. Okay.
Well, there's a point here. Now, it looks like you've done worse because you've given white a free attack on your g7 pawn. But actually, there is a latent threat here for black.
Oh, I guess what, E3 and hitting
Yeah.
the C2 square?
Right. That's the key point. So
I see.
white.
And
so-
so by finessing the bishop to D4, you
That was my master
you
plan.
make queen F5 stronger. I get it.
Right.
That's very nice.
And now the point
Yeah,
is
I agree.
white's d6 idea, which should have equalized in the game, comes too late because of d3 attacking this. White's idea of getting the bishop to c4. Whereas with the game continuation, queen f5, now white could have come close to equality by playing d6,
Right.
because bishop c4
Right.
will regain the exchange. However, Pultenavicius did not do that.
Oops. Yeah.
And now both players, by the way, are under 17 minutes. So this game does go fairly allegro. And
So
black has more
we
than
forgive everything now. because-
advantage according to the computer. And this now
Wow.
queen f6 is a very nice finesse. And it's interesting to explore why. If you just take on g5, white could take with the h pawn, and then there's going to be certain counterplay arriving on the h file and with white's bishop going to d4. Whereas when you play queen f6 check, now you're forcing white to make a decision, because if white's king move, then black's queen can come into c3 and other bad things happen. And bishop d4, let's see, what's wrong with bishop d4 here? Bishop d4, then it says white can just take, black can just take, and then bishop d takes c5 is effective. I guess we're gaining tempi in this position. Oh yeah, we're going to get rid of white's bishop.
And then bishop should be-
Oh, there you go.
and the attack on f6. Okay, so it's all a question of timing. Whereas if you capture this way and then play d takes c5, you've given white a respite to do something. So the point of luring the bishop to d4 was so that taking on c5 would be a tempo. So black did indeed, so Burlington Hardaway did indeed play the idea of luring the bishop to d4, just in a different way and for a different purpose. So white instead traded queens, but now white is actually fairly lost. There isn't any clear source of counterplay in this position. And black was able to just do some head.
yeah.
I take that back. I forgot that this actually, this was
It's
missed.
like a human move to me.
Yeah, it's certainly a good human move. It's mistimed because the only counterplay that white has in this position is associated with the d pawn and getting rid of black's two c pawns and advancing the d pawn. And this apparently allowed black to do just that, because white could take on c5 and the king can then go to c6. But instead, Pultenavicius had the idea, and this is kind of the same thing. Black is
Yeah.
a little bit oblivious to the fact that white can.
rook c2 check though. That you can't get to c6.
Well, let's see. So rook c2 check. Is that mate? No, it's not mate. Rook c2 check. White's able to go here.
Mhm.
And
Oh,
let's
so
see.
you're gonna grab the
c3 check. King takes e4. I guess we're
Yeah.
not doing anything.
There's
So the other important thing is white has had under a minute left, and black had 6 minutes left. So anyway, white, however,
Oh,
yeah, played different stuff, and now black is able to get it together. And these pawns now are black's rook is going to come in by a
the
c.
D pawn's eliminated, and that's
So a very nice game and a very interesting game.
quite interesting.
Yeah, there are a lot of fine points in this game.
Yeah.
A lot of fine points when the move order, sometimes it's very decisive, and extra check changes a lot.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Sasha, have we talked about? I haven't been on as often as I used to be. Is about Hans Niemann? I mean, the guy is rated.
He's playing Magnus Carlsen
Later today, yeah.
That's fascinating to me, and he's rated 2733. I looked it up before the show. So he's playing excellent chess.
He's gained rating in matches against people, at somewhat faster time control. So he's been accused of farming them, but anyway. But I've had Niemann as a solid low 2700s player for well over a year. So
we'll see how his match with Carlsen, specifically that he mentioned that if he will be continued to be not invited in top tournaments, he will start his own chess league and his own tournaments, and he will decide whom to invite and not, and so on. But we'll see.
Yeah, I'm peeking in on Ali Reza versus Hikaru, and Ali Reza is maintaining a 2-point edge. So now 7-5, and Hikaru I think just has a few more bullet games to try to make this up.
Yeah. Let's mention that we are recording this program on Friday,
right?
This tournament, because it will be shown on Saturday at 3:00. So people would already know results of this.
Yes, that's right. Or what happened.
Oh, yeah. What are those dummies talking about?
But I can present just one game that's a little bit of a bookend to the previous game, just more quickly.
Okay.
Within the women's counterpart to this tournament, the Julia Baer Speed Chess Tournament, and
we already have
Wen Jun, the reigning women's world champion since 2018, has been doing a better job than Ting Liren of defending her title, and so she won this event. The ratings you're seeing are the chess.com Blitz ratings. So
I'm not
both
seeing
mid 2700s in Blitz, but that's well below the 3200 plus of the top guys in Blitz. But I don't think they play as often. Women play as often either, and that's feeding into the premise of some of my own work. Anyway, we play. I'm going to call it a Grunfeld structure. Some of the dynamics of this game are more Grunfeld, even though that's not how it arose.
We've lost your screen, Ken.
Oh, not seeing the screen yet?
No.
Okay, I am sharing a tear.
No.
Let me wait for it to come.
We're okay now.
You see it now? Okay.
Yep.
So anyway, this game, even though it arises via the moves of the Queen Gambit, black captures on d5 with the knight, and this has more of the characteristics of a classic Grunfeld position, Grunfeld pawn structure, except that black is able to play bishop d4 check, which sort of adds a different spice to the lines where we would reach an end game or black trades on the queen side.
This reminds me of Dan's comment that the computers have found that all openings are playable now.
This opening is okay, but so I played something like this in correspondence. I don't know if these particular moves are playable, but the system where it's one of the I forget the name of it, but there's a real opening that where black that's similar to this, where black just gets like a solid position and white can't break through.
Yeah.
That doesn't look like what's going to happen here, though. I like white here.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the tactical question is whether white's center pawns can be undermined, or whether they eventually are going to put a clamp on the
Classic
position.
argument, right?
So black has one very good square for the knight that closes the C file. The knight can't be attacked by a pawn, and it's guarded.
Right.
But now the real question, this is where it bookends the previous game, is whether black's undermining the center, similar to what we saw Hardaway do, is going to succeed. And the computer actually queries this right away, although I don't think rook c8 is ultimately better. And I know this is chess.com's notation for querying a move. It's only a 0.35 difference in a val.
It has to be played at one point. Right?
Yeah, it has to be
Looks like-
played at some point. Yeah.
With move f6, black is undermining their own center rather than
That might be true. It might be
Possible.
true. And the computer wants white to castle, and that's what I would have done in a
That's
heartbeat.
interesting. Yeah.
So I'm
That's
actually
natural.
surprised that white gives up the center.
Right.
And now the computer says black is completely fine. Okay, now white castled, but it would have been tactically better to have black trade, and then your knight comes into e5, right?
Yeah. Right.
White does control the e5 square, but Zhu Wenjun outplays black, and this most natural move you could imagine, okay, just doubling the rooks behind the pawn, keeping
Certainly
the
would have
knight
done it, yeah.
strong square, is a mistake, and the computer
Of
says,
course.
well, what does the computer say here? This is where the computer is being really weird. It says, retreat the knight to b7, and when white plays knight g5, a natural attacking move, your e6, bring the knight back to c5. I guess the point is white can't profit from the win of 2 tempi. Well, I don't know about that. White can play h3. It's very strange.
That looks like a typical push the horizon out.
Yeah. But now what it comes down to
Hmm.
is the issue of evaluating the position that's going to arrive after this forced sequence where white gives up, white gets 2 rooks for the
Yeah,
coup.
I'm pretty impressed with White's nerve there. Yeah. Going
The
into
older I get, the more I like the rooks.
Okay. So
It's
anyway,
true.
that's what it comes
Sometimes
down
I'm wrong,
to.
but-
And Zhu Wenjun proved the superiority of the rooks. I'm not going to go chase every time the computer doesn't like the move, but just play with
Oh,
the
my
flow. And the flow is that black takes too long to get counterplay on the queen side going, and that white is in fact able to first force weaknesses, because black could not allow white to play h5 and knight g6. Then black's king would have been completely
Yeah.
checked.
Right.
And now, again, the computer queries this move compared to knight f7, but is such a natural move. You've got a natural plan. Except here, it's interestingly enough, it's more important for black to play h6, keep the king out of
I wouldn't have played that. Yeah.
checks. Now this is black's pawns are failing with check, and now this is bait. So
Yahoo.
there we go.
Oh,
Okay. So a very solid win by Zhu Wenjun in that position.
You know what's the advantage
Operation
of
there.
2 rooks over the queen is that 2 rooks, they can checkmate the king. The queen alone cannot checkmate.
Right.
That's why 2 rooks are preferable in my opinion.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
Both Queen and Knight have this reputation for being good attacking combination, but I prefer the 2 rooks as well. Even down a pawn, it's like, the queen has to retreat so often.
Mhm.
So,
Even if you take 2 rooks by weight, 2 rooks and here 1 queen.
a novel way.
It's not here. That was the late Grandmaster Goufeld. He was explaining why bishop is stronger than knight. He said, go to the zoo and look at the elephant and then horse. Then who do you think is strong?
Yeah.
What's the Russian word for bishop? The elephant.
Yeah, the elephant. Yeah. Well, okay. I would like to thank you very much for today's program.
Thank you.
And, we'll see you next week, same place, same time. And now let's rush and see the games of Nakamura Firouzja and later on Niemann against Carlsen.
Yes.
Okay. Have a good
Thanks for the
time.
game, Ken.
All right.
Yep.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much.
All right.
Bye bye.